Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bonnie Vandermeulen, Training Coordinator for Wisconsin Facets. On behalf of our entire Wisconsin Facet staff, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Our webinar today is entitled Skills for Effective Parent Advocacy, and I, Bonnie Vandermeulen, will be your presenter for today's workshop. This workshop is one that's pretty near and dear to my heart. Although it is a workshop that was put together quite a few years ago, almost all the information contained within is very appropriate if you want to begin to hone your skills as an effective parent advocate. So let's start here and let's see if I can get this question box to reduce itself. Here we go. Okay. Well, we're having technical difficulties even before we get going today. There we go. So our Skills for Effective Parent Advocacy is brought to you today again by Wisconsin Facets, and here is our contact information if any of you are interested. Our agenda for today includes the three things on your slide. We hope that you will learn basically what parent advocacy actually means, how to improve your advocacy skills, and how you as a parent of your child with disabilities can make a difference. It is our hope that you will find one or more skills you can use to become a more effective advocate for your child with a disability. Recently, in a workshop such as this one, a mother whose child is blind and has cognitive disabilities stood up during a training and said, "I've always been a private and shy person. I never liked to speak up, but I am learning today that I have to speak up if life is going to work for my son and for my family." On the slide in front of you today is a statement by a person by the name of Alice Walker. It says, "The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any." Parents of children with disabilities who participated in a recent focus group expressed a lot of frustration. Here are some of the things that they shared with us. "I feel like my child's teacher thinks she knows my son better than I do. It seems like the staff members support their system and not me or my child. I always feel spoken down to. Sometimes I just give up and leave it to the school to do what they have to do because I'm tired of fighting. I only seem to get services for my child and the things that my child deserves if I know my rights and my responsibilities." So let's take a look at actually what an advocate truly is. Advocates speak up for themselves or others to make things better. As an advocate, or an advocate can be broadly defined as someone who speaks up to make things better. Advocates can speak up for themselves, or they can speak up for others. Each of you have already been an advocate. You may have attached a label to your actions. Advocacy covers a very broad range of activities that just about everyone, in many settings, does every day. You as an advocate for yourself, and you as an advocate for others. As a parent of a child with a disability, you have already had to speak up on behalf of your child in one way, shape, or form. You have spoken to a teacher, possibly a daycare worker, your doctor, a nurse, possibly a social worker, or other parents or relatives or friends. So on the slide there, it just talks to you and asks you if you've actually done some of these kinds of things. Have you told a cashier that an item is not ringing up correctly? That's basically some sort of advocacy. Have you spoken at a local gathering about a project that you care about, or actually maybe you don't even care about? These are other ways that you express a form of advocacy. So why be an advocate? Parents bring their own valuable experience with their child to the table. Parents are the experts about their child, and I can't say this enough. I believe that parents know their children better than anybody else. So you bring that knowledge with you to the table. Professionals have knowledge and expertise in a specific area, but they are only a temporary part of what you would consider to be a part of your child's life. Professionals will pass in and out of your child's life, but you are the constant person, you as the parent. Professionals deal with many children, but you only have your child to think about. A child is served best if parents and professionals work together. However, your child will need you to advocate for him or her. No one, again, no one cares about your child as much as you do, but you must speak up to make sure that your child becomes an independent, productive, and as happy as he or she can be. As a parent, you want your child to belong and participate in the community in which he or she lives. Only you can make that happen. No one else can, but you and your child working together. So here on this slide are some skills that you can include and that should help you to become an effective advocate. What does it mean to be an advocate? Well, an advocate is a supporter. An advocate is a backer, someone who believes in you, and also a form of a promoter. You can be all of these things. You undoubtedly already have skills in these 6 areas listed on the slide. The goal of this workshop is to expand your skills so that you can become a more effective advocate for your child. This workshop will give an overview of these important advocacy skills and will also provide resources to learn more. So looking at this list, ask yourself, which is my strongest area, my weakest area? In which areas could I learn more so I can be more effective? Understanding my child's disability, knowing the key players and who would be the ones that I need to contact on a specific area, knowing my rights and my responsibility. How organized am I? Do I need to become a little bit more organized? I need to be able to communicate. And is my communication clear? And is it effective? And I also need to know how to resolve disagreements. And for many, this is one of the hardest areas. In other words, as this particular slide goes on to say, advocacy is much than just the things written here. Advocacy is much more important than playing a game of recreation, but some of the main ideas may still be the same. So let's imagine that you're playing a board game or a card game. Games have rules, and players need to know those rules in order to play the game. But the players also need what we call people skills, such as turn taking, concentration, making conversation, managing emotions. Do I play with a straight face like when I'm playing something like a game of poker? What is the strategy or the plan that I will use or my child will use to play the game? Of course, the Social Security program, your doctor's office, and your child's special education program are not games, but they have processes with rules that will also require people skills and the skill to resolve a disagreement. Knowing the rules of the game or processes will help you to become an effective advocate for your child. So in other words, who's the star? Who's the player? What are the rules of the game? Do I have a plan of action? What do I say when it's my turn? And actually, what do I do or say when I disagree? So skill one, understanding my child's disability. Why is this important? Well, it'll help you to understand the options for raising a child with a disability, and it will help you to ask educated and informed questions. What are things like high expectations and what do they mean? Well, let's expect that you will become a more effective advocate for your child. And in doing so, you will help your child to participate in his or her own success. Expect that schools, agencies, doctors, and legislators and others will partner with you. And you should be able to begin to ask them to do those kinds of things. Know what services are appropriate for your child, have high expectations for those services, find the right assistive technology and recommendations, and use your resources to learn more. Get to know some adults with your child's disability and ask them what kinds of things you can do to get some answers to the questions that you have. Hook into some of the disability groups that represent the areas in which your child has a disability and try and get some information from those disability groups. Join support groups. Maybe support groups will help you to understand and deal with some of the emotions that you have as well. And in our age of assistive technology, there is a wealth of information on the internet and on specific websites that you can look to for more information. Another thing that you need to know, and the second skill that we'll discuss today, is knowledge of who the key players actually are. Who is the director or the decision maker? Who is the staff person? And who is that nonprofit or private employee that will be the one that will be helping me? And how can I find out who that person's name or what that person's name is? So why is this all important? In order to influence someone to make a change that you think is necessary for your child, you'll need to be able to talk to that person. You'll need to know who actually the authority is in making those decisions and changes. So here's an example for you. The case manager for your child, if your child has an IEP, would be the person that you may need to talk to. Or is it a special social service kind of thing? Is it someone, for example, that's a medical director or a patient representative or some agency director or supervisor that might be able to help you? And if you find out who it is, it would be important to know what the hierarchy is. Is there someone in the system with a higher rank that might have more authority, might be able to help you? And then also, after you find out who that person's name actually is, you might want to look on the internet and find out a little bit more about that person. Find some resources in the library or ask staff at your local parent center for ideas or maybe even some additional contacts. Our third skill is to know your rights and your responsibilities. So why is this important? Knowing who is in charge is not enough. Parents need to know the rules of the game too. Parents need to participate from a position of knowledge as much as possible. Each agency or service provider has guidelines on how they work. They have procedures, forms, policies, and sometimes laws and regulations. You need to ask where you can find these in writing if available. Finding the funding sources. There is a direct link between how an agency or service is funding and your rights and your responsibilities. If agencies or services are funded by the public, they are required to follow certain laws and not just policies. So publicly funded systems are supported by things like taxes and include public schools, all level of government, including cities and counties, and all government agencies. Other agencies and services and nonprofits that are supported by fees and grants and donations, or even private ones that are supported by fees and donations or earned income. Nonprofit and private agencies and services typically have policies or ways of doing their business. So again, here, you might want to learn about specific things as it leads to you knowing more about your rights and your responsibilities. So let's talk for a minute about parents as partners. Parents and partners have to get together, and you should consider their work together for the benefit of those that they are working for. So parents and professionals can be partners in working together, in sharing their goals, in having specific individual roles in helping the child, sharing some sort of authority. So parents have authority at home, maybe teachers have authority at schools, have different skills, and can solve problems. Skill 4, becoming well organized. And this is really an important skill that I think not only parents, but everybody needs to become as well organized as possible. And why is this important? More agencies and services require documents, data, records, and alike. So be well prepared by being organized with what you need. For keeping records, separate your records by service or agency. For example, school records may go into a special education record keeping folder, while health records may go in another folder or a box. Keep written correspondence as much as possible, including printing your emails from school, from the social service agency, from county services, from the Social Security Administration, from medical professionals, or any other system. Keep a special list of names and contact numbers for each system you deal with. When you go to a meeting, bring all of the pertinent records that you file or that you have in a folder with you. Keep them in order by date so that you can easily find them when you need them. Also, remember to keep everything and put everything in writing. It is always best to get as many things as you can in writing as possible. This includes copies of any letters or emails you may send yourself. Also, keep copies of letters and emails you receive from others. We have a saying in advocacy circles that if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Sometimes many may ask themselves, well, why is it so important? You need to have documentation of everything that you have, including keeping a phone log record and keeping a meeting notebook. Those are all important things to keep a copy of. Many parents put together a binder, and in that binder, they have different breakouts and different sections in the binder that would include all the things that we just talked about. Now, let me just check here because I believe someone might have a question. Let me just double check and make sure. Okay, now someone is saying that one of the handouts won't actually download. And so if that is the case and you're having trouble with them not downloading at this time, please send me an email and I'll send that particular form to you electronically. Sorry for that inconvenience at this time. Our fifth skill is use clear and effective communications. And again, why is this important? The only person you have the power to change is yourself. This is about you and not about them. The way you talk to others has a direct relationship on how they interact with you and perhaps what services your child will receive. If you have a habit of showing strong emotions, ask yourself, will this get me what my child needs today as well as for tomorrow? And I know this very well because I need to make sure that my emotions are in check because sometimes I get a little frustrated with what I think people should be able to do and what they're actually doing. So keep those things in mind for yourself. The power that we have and that we bring with us is really important, but we have to remember that we have to keep things like our anger in check. Remember to keep your eyes on the prize. The prize is the effective service for our child with a disability. The focus should always be on the child and what the child needs, not what we need. So also make sure you listen and ask questions. Focus on the needs of your child, not on the solution that you want. Keep the emphasis on what the child needs, not simply the service. Use data or facts instead of your opinion to support what you think your child needs as much as possible. Try your best to describe the problem as clearly as you can. Encourage inputs from other members of the team. So let's say you're sitting around the table and it's in the middle of the IEP and you say something like, I've really found that this is an issue with my child. What are your opinions in this area? And then begin to brainstorm without evaluating some of those areas. Don't make judgments on how good the idea may be. Just begin to list some of the options because maybe someone else at the table has an idea that you haven't heard of before. Begin to look at ideas as what might be some of the solutions and see if there's a solution that you can come to by some sort of consensus where most of you would agree. Develop the best plan that you can. Define who is responsible for that action and when will it be done. Again, put the plan in writing. Create a timeline and criteria to evaluate what the success of that plan is. And follow up to make sure the plan is implemented. Speak clearly. Avoid as best as you possibly can making people defensive. Try not to criticize because with each criticism, someone gets more defensive. Give positive feedback if you can and praise as often as possible. Even saying to someone, that's an idea that I hadn't thought about. That's a great idea. Let's take a look at it and see if that might work. Turn as many negatives as you can into positives. This technique will allow you to take a negative comment and make it something that might be positive for your child. And here's an example for you. He's always fighting could mean something like, it looks like my child needs to learn social skills. And then summarize as best as you can for all the information that someone has given you and that you've discussed as you move further along in your discussion. So on our next slide, we have tips for good communication at a meeting. And I think most of them are pretty self-explanatory. We want to always focus on the goal. In other words, keep your eye on the prize that we talked about before. We need to show respect and that we also need to expect respect from the others that we're working with. We want to try as best as we can to manage as many of our emotions as we can. And hopefully those sitting around the table as well will do the same. We want to ask questions, clarifying questions, questions that will get you some more data that you can use in the discussion going forward. You want to be able to rephrase a statement for clarification if you're not sure, or you can rephrase for clarification to make that statement a positive statement. And then wherever you can, you want to say thank you, because I think that's important to acknowledge the fact that even though at times you might not think so, we're hopeful that everyone has your child's best interest in mind. And we want to be able, as best as we can, to document a verbal discussion. So try, if you can, to take notes. If you are unable to take notes in an IEP meeting, bring a friend with you and have the friend take notes. Or if two parents are present in an IEP meeting, have one be the note taker and one necessarily be able to work as the communicator. So our next slide talks a little bit about written communication and some tips again for written communication. Letters should be sent to the person who can make change. So who is that person in the district, for example, that has the power to make the change? Every written communication needs to be dated and needs to be signed. They need to focus on one or two issues, because the more issues you include in a written communication, the more cumbersome it is. So you should probably stick as best as you possibly can to the written communication in one or two issues. It shouldn't be longer than one page. And we tell people that because lots of times people lose interest in a lengthy communication. So be as succinct as you possibly can and be as brief in trying to describe what the issue is at hand. Always remember to set a deadline if you expect a reply. So something to the effect of, there's several ways to do that, as being as positive as you can. Please remember that I would like a reply to my email as soon as possible, but instead of saying as soon as possible, put down a specific date. Upon receipt of this email, I'm expecting a written correspondence, or by Friday, please make sure that I have an answer to my question, or I would appreciate an answer to my question before Friday. Make sure that your letter includes contact information and, of course, your most current contact information. If you want someone to call you, include your telephone number. If you want someone to email you, include your email information. If it doesn't matter to you, include both for that person to choose. If there's a specific way to contact you, please make sure that you give that. And always keep a copy of your communication for yourself. So what happens when you disagree during the course of an IEP, in the communications that you've had with someone? When parents and agencies or social service providers disagree, there are things that you can do or say that will help with the disagreement and help to be solved more quickly and amicably, no matter what process is used. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You can express that you want to continue to work together for the benefit of your child, and that you do not want this agreement to interfere with that. In other words, if there's a disagreement and both of you are not sure, you might want to say something to the effect of, I'm really sorry at this point, you and I disagree on this particular issue. Even though we have other issues that we agree on, this is one that's very important to me, and I think we need to maybe work on this a little further. Sometimes you want to be partially responsible for the disagreement and accept that type of responsibility on your part. Apologize if it's appropriate. I'm really sorry. I can't see it from your perspective. I see it from being a mother of a child with disability, and I see what my child's needs are. At this time, money should not be the issue. My child's needs should be the issue. You are an advocate for your child only. The professionals you may disagree with are working for the agency or the service provider. They must not only answer to you, but they have to also answer to the agency that they work for. Oftentimes, it is not the person you are disagreeing with at all, but it's the agency. So try your best to separate the person from the problem. And this brings to mind just something that happened to me the other day. I was on the telephone and I was holding on for probably 55 minutes to talk to a customer service representative. And when that representative came on the telephone, I was really angry. But what I said was, I know this is not your fault, so please don't take this personally. But I think I'd like to give you some feedback and let you know how frustrated I am at this point because I had to wait so long to be able to talk to somebody. Each person involved in a disagreement brings different information and values and priorities to the table. Not one person has all the answers. So try to work together using everyone's input to solve the problem. Help people make sure that their facts are accurate so that decisions are accurate. Not everything is worth disagreeing with. So the last statement on this slide is one of the most important ones. Choose your battles. I think that when I used to go into IEP meetings, I'd have a list with me about what was the things that I wanted to accomplish the most and what were the things that I was willing to let go of for the most important things. And I think that this is something that you should keep in mind, not only during the course of people's IEP meetings, but the course of any of your interactions where there may be a disagreement. The sixth skill that we're going to talk about at this time is knowing how to really begin to resolve some of the problems as they exist as disagreements. And why is this important? As a parent, you may agree or disagree with the decisions made by the agency or the service provider. So if we look back at skill number 3, you'll be reminded that knowing who is in charge is not enough. Parents need to know the rules of the game, including how disagreements are settled with a specific agency or a service provider. Each agency or service provider has a formal or an informal guideline on how they're able to solve disagreements. Ask for that particular protocol so that you have it in writing. It is usually best to use as many informal means as you possibly can. Start your efforts at the lowest possible level. Talk to people. Ask as the case manager or the service provider about differences and be clear about why you disagree. And this is often the easiest way to solve a problem. Often a compromise or something that we would call a trial solution might work. You may say something to the effect of, I don't really know if this will work, but we could give it a try. And if you're going to say that and give it a try, you might want to put a time limit on the length of the trial. So for example, let's not try it for a whole term. Let's try it for 2 weeks and see if it might work. Here are some other statements as it relates to the formal processes that are involved in how to resolve disagreement, and 3 of them are listed for you there. The first one is mediation. And we are really fortunate in the state of Wisconsin to have a special ed mediation program. And if you're interested and need some information about mediation and special ed mediation in our state, please feel free to either contact me or our office, and we can provide you with information in that area. And there are specific protocols that are involved. Mediation process in the state of Wisconsin is free to both school districts and parents. So that's something that some of you might want to look into. It's the Wisconsin Special Education Mediation System, and you can look it up online, or we can provide you with additional information. You can file a specific complaint with an agency or a service provider and have a formal means of filing a grievance or complaint. And there are also specific appeals processes that are listed. There are multiple ways that you can file complaints in our state of Wisconsin through the Department of Public Instruction. If you feel that you need to go further than the Department of Public Instruction, and if you feel, for example, that your complaint touches on some civil rights areas, we have the Department of Education's Division of Civil Rights that you might want to contact, and we have a branch in Chicago. And there are other types of appeals that would be available to you. So you always want to check out what the formal processes are and what they look like and how you might be able to engage in those processes. So let's take a look now at what our skill checklist looks like. You know, just exactly what we've learned. And we can talk a little bit about that in understanding your child's disability. We need to know who the key players are. We need to know what our rights and responsibilities are. We need to recognize the fact that if we're going to go into a meeting and if we have questions about that meeting and if we are concerned about the things that are happening, what are we going to do about it? And as we're going to take a look at that, we want to become as organized as we possibly can. Make sure everything is in the same page, construct a binder, construct a resource file, make sure that all the information on a specific area is collected and that you know how to access it as soon as possible. Make sure that all our communication is clear and effective. Know how to resolve as many disagreements as possible in a way that's amicable, in a way that's knowledgeable, in a way that is as non-emotional as possible. Now, is there a specific skill in the skill list that we've listed that you hope to improve? And if so, what resources might you need to take a look at? And do you need more support? And if you do need more support, where can you go to get that support? And then in summary, one of the statements by Helen Keller is one that I think that's really important. The only person you can change is you. No matter how much you wish the other person would learn some of these skills, you can't force that to happen. But you do have power to change and to grow yourself. As the saying goes, every journey begins with one step. As you work on your skills, you'll find yourself becoming more competent and more effective. And through that process, you can make a great difference in the life of your child with their disability. And again, the statement on the slide here, I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. And I think that statement is just tremendously important because you have to remember, even though you can't do everything, there is something that you could possibly do. So that is the end of my prepared comments for today. I think that from what I'm seeing here, we don't have any other questions. I'll just double check and make sure. But no, there aren't any other questions that we have for today. Please be reminded that Wisconsin Facets has over 100 scheduled webinars for trainings that are available for you. They're free of charge. Our 100 webinar trainings will be available for 2021. We have trainings for the rest of the month of October, November, and December that are listed now on our website. And our new training calendar will be available by the end of the month in electronic format. And then we are at this time printing copies of our 2021 training calendar. Please feel free to contact me if you have other questions or would like me to talk a little bit more about advocacy. I'd be glad to do so. If you needed to contact me directly, my work telephone number is 608-821-0730, and my email address is B for Bonnie, V for Victory, ANDERMEULEN at wifacets.org. This concludes our webinar for today. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Please watch for the short evaluation that will be coming your way after today's live presentation. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and have a good day. Stay safe and be well. Bye-bye now.